I'm here at Schloss Waldeck. It's only a ruin nowadays, but there used to be an old village that burned down a few hundred years ago, and they've never rebuilt it. There is a new village now, of which you can see the beginnings just there. But it has nothing to do with the old village. So I'm gonna go and see, well, what this whole thing looks like. And we're going this way. I'm gonna pause it because this is not interesting if I'm just walking through the woods. And this, of course, this is the first stop right there. I see a sign through the trees. And as you can see, it's a bit hazy, a bit misty. I picked today because, well, number one, it's Sunday and I have time. And number two, because I like it when it's misty. There's a little, well, mystery about it. Let me see if this is the first stop. This would be earth cellars, as they call it. I.e., yes, you can see it here. I'm not quite sure if they're the same thing as ice cellars. So, hope you were able to read this. There's probably not much you can see. Let me see if I can turn on. Yeah, it's just darkness. Let me see if it's possible that I turn on the light. No. Too bad. Well, there's nothing to see. It's just a few steps down. And then it's darkness. Probably some ghosts. Isn't that where shadow people love to be? When it's dark and they're not being disturbed. Shadow people, ghosts of the old, and so forth. And this sign tells you about the trees that are growing here. But only in German. So, again, I'm going to pause it because right now I'm just walking. The next stop will be the site of the old village. Just to show you the view down that way. Alright. Something for which there is no sign, but there's a hole in the ground. I don't know if that's another part of the vaulted. Probably is, because if you look down there, you can see some foundations. So this might be part of the vaulted earth cellars, or I can't think of anything else. Must be part of the earth cellars, and guess that's a window? I have no idea. Anyway, next up will be the old village. I promise, I promise. I don't know if this video will be usable. We'll see. I wanted to show you where I'm at right now without the gimbal, so this is handheld, I'm sorry. But through the mist, you should be able to see the castle ruins. And yes, they always put a crucifix on anything because we're a religious bunch. And this is where it just came from. Gorgeous, huh? So this is just a few yards after that previous short video I just showed you. And this is indeed the site of the old village. This is to the south of the castle ruins, which you can see up there. And what I read online, that it's difficult to say what the village looked like. So it must have been, well, right here. They were able to reconstruct the castle quite well, and there's a film in German on YouTube. But the village itself, they were not able to really reconstruct. So here's some information. Yeah, and there was a fire in 1794. So, anyway, through the wet grass, we're going up to the castle ruins now. And yes, I'm wearing shoes, dirty shoes, but they're waterproof, so and this gives you some information about wildlife. The wildlife you can find here. Actually quite interesting. It is, depending on when you see this, it's the beginning, just the beginning of autumn. Today's what day is today? 12th of September, I think. And you can just see the leaves start to turn. So anyway, I wonder if this is the actual old path up to the castle. Because if you look at the ground here where those two posts are, it is a little dented, i.e. as if it had been used in the past. It's lower than the rest of the ground. I'm sorry if I'm out of breath. I am not the fittest person in the world. So we're going uphill. And yes, that takes my breath away. But we should be coming. It's not very long. It's not a long path. With the gimbal, I cannot tilt the phone. At least, if it's possible, I haven't figured out how to yet. And I can also see it's a little bit crooked, I think. Apologies for that. That's the gimbal. I don't know how much you can pick up. But anyway, instead of me breathing heavily into your ear, I'm gonna pause it again. Alright, I think I very nearly caught my breath back to normal again. Man, you can see here the upper gate, as they say. And again, and I hope I can catch it on camera. The crucifix, I assume that's the location of the former chapel. They used to have a chapel here, of course, like every castle did. And they had several turrets around it on the outside, presumably for fortification, for defense purposes, and also inside the castle, and that was just a stairwell. And yes, I do believe this was the entrance. I mean, sorry, the path that I was coming up was indeed the official entrance. So this is, I think, if I remember correctly, this was built by the Swedes as they were here. And it's one of those places where soldiers gathered and their arms were kept, I guess. And as you can see nothing. Normally you have a beautiful view around the whole area here. But because it's misty, because it chose to come today, you're missing out on that. Meaning I'll have to come back another day. But just look at those walls. Man, compared to houses are built nowadays, this is what you call sturdy. So this would be, I guess, not quite sure if this would be one of the turrets. This is either the turrets or possibly stables and quarters for, what do you call them? It's not slaves, what do you used to call them? Employees, staff. Here. Oh, it was the outer castle. Okay, I stand corrected. Okay, this is not in English. So, this is about the mount. I'm not quite sure if I should call it a mountain. Tiny mountain. That it's on, and there's some information here in English. And incidentally, we have quite a few, let's call them peaks, where you can see that those were volcanoes in the making. They were actual, you can see the basalt. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And they say actually our area is still a little active with volcanism. You sometimes have tremors. You don't have full-blown earthquakes, thank goodness, but you have tremors. They feel like a heavy truck is passing by, only longer. So imagine, you know, when your house is shaking slightly from the vibration of the truck, and now imagine it takes longer than a truck would take to pass by. But that's all we get. And yes, I do have to come back on a non-misty day, on a clear day, to show you the surrounding area. Because I'm sure that this is gorgeous here. And I guess if you look at the rocks there, the one with the lichen, I think it's pronounced lichen, that does look a little bit like basalt. So yeah. Whoever built this castle built it at a very interesting spot. So here's some more information on the plants that are growing here. And if my gimbal does what I want it to do, namely turn right. So there are numerous cellars underneath or in the mountain. I guess it's in the mountain. So the hole that I showed you earlier is probably one of those cellars, I'm pretty certain. So Let me see what this says. Oh, no. There is a circular path around the castle. Oh well, you do have a toilet here, but it's one of those Dixie toilets. I don't really want to use those. So I'm not going to go up this place where you see the bench right ahead of us, simply because it's one of those viewpoints where you can see the whole area. But as you can see, the mist takes away all the view. So let's go up this way. Hopefully I'll get back into the castle. Or maybe not. Nope. Alright, I'm gonna pause it again and I'll go back to where the chapel was and go up to the interior of the castle. Alright, I'm back to the main square that I was before, approaching the former chapel that they had here. I'm not sure what this was. Probably another cellar or the vault of the chapel. It looks as if it's now being used for storage. Yeah, you can see some benches in there. Can the camera pick them up? Yeah. Oh, it's not very big. Ah, but there is... I think you can see this sign. Sorry about the noise. So the upkeep of the castle ruins is done by a charity organization. And of course they rely on donations. And the sign you saw there with all those names, those were donators. They donated some money for the upkeep of the chapel now. But I'm sure that the money was also used for the castle. So, gimbal, stop moving. Sorry about the sudden moves. That's the gimbal. So, this is what the chapel would have been like, just, I guess, one room, plus the altar room. And I remember reading that they had a painted altar, you know, those altar paintings that you often see, which when the castle first had a fire was saved and taken down to the former village, but then it burned down with the village, which is too bad because it's one of those painters, and I don't know how to explain that, the painters that are famous for altar paintings. So, too bad we don't see anything, we have no knowledge of the altar painting except that it did exist. So I'm going to pause it again because I'm going to walk up those steps and I'm going to be out of breath again, as always.